a high dollar Democratic primary in the 6th congressional district that's quickly becoming a battle of billionaires and competing realities. Cary, we're seeing one of the most expensive primaries in Maryland history. David Trone is reported has spent already $10 million dollars of his own money on it. And April McLean Delaney has put over $2.5 million in her campaign. And they both are citing polls that say they're ahead. What's up with this?
Uh, it's difficult to say. I mean, both of them have history with that seat, and both of them have done a fine job as congressman for District 6 in the past, and they're both correct. They're fighting Donald Trump, okay, and his policies. April Delaney has, argued that she's fought the healthcare, lack of budget, that she's fought him, Donald Trump on, the war and numerous other things. Trump can equally argue that he's tried to defend the Democratic public. What can I tell you? It's going to
Well,
be an
my
experiment.
gosh, Cary, the ads that former Congressman Trone has been running are so. I mean, they're so off-putting that I know many people who just as soon as they see him turn them off. Let's go to Stacey. Stacey, Trone's campaign is touting an independent poll showing him ahead, while Delaney is dismissing it as flawed methodology. But at what point do dueling polls serve about two
We're talking
candidates
about a
who are so well
primary.
known?
We're talking about a primary, and if history repeats itself, it may not be very. I mean, a lot of public may not attend, may not vote.
Casey, let me
So
pick this up if I may. Honestly, the manipulation never really ends. If you have enough money, you can commission polls until you find one that tells a story you want told. And the bigger question for voters should always be who who was polled, what was the sample, what questions were asked, and who paid for it, right? Because those details can shape the outcome as much as the voter sentiment itself. So let's be honest, a lot of campaign polling is designed to inform voters, it's designed to create momentum, influence donors, and sometimes discourage opponents. So it becomes less of a measurement and more messaging. So what concerns me is that while candidates trade the poll releases like press releases, voters still want to and need to know who's talking about traffic, affordability, public safety, economic growth. Polls can become a substitute for substance.
So, I mean, we all have recognized so far, and Cary, you touched on it in your opening comments that, that uh, both candidates are running against
Donald Trump.
President Trump or making a big claim about running against President Trump. But we also have to recognize that at some point within this campaign, which is going to early voting starts in less than 2 months, that the candidates are going to have to focus their attention on one another and not just on Donald Trump.
Well, you also have Chuck Schumer, and he's a problem for the Democratic Party. He really is.
Amen.
He has not. I mean, even in this recent vote on sending arms, funding arms, he voted against his own party, or the majority of his own party. So I don't know. Right now, I think the big argument that they need to focus on, and I touched on it earlier with you, is the resetting of the economy. And I'm not going to go into a lot of discussion about it, but on May
But Cary,
15th,
I want to let's focus in. Both of these candidates have represented the district. Both of them are well known. And what is going to distinguish each other? They're going to have to start picking on one another soon enough. Stacey, it may all be well and good to campaign against President Trump in the Democratic primary, but doesn't that open the door to a Republican candidate running on local issues and saying, "Hey, what have you done for me here? How have you impacted me in my life in Montgomery County when I'm strangling on traffic, when I'm strangling with a depressed economy?"
Absolutely can, Casey. And because voters eventually want a candidate running for something, not just against someone. And we may be seeing early evidence of that in places people assume to be political lockdown, like in California. Look at Steve Hilton. He's a Republican making early headway in a very blue environment by
You
talking
got to
about
remember
living,
who's
competence, and quality of life. In Maryland, politicians should pay attention because in some ways we are a microcosm of California, expensive housing, regulatory bloat, infrastructure strain, and voters growing frustrated by the minute with one party governance. If Democrats make every race a referendum on Donald Trump, leaving really critical local issues on the table.
it's
All
the
right, Cary, I'm
Republicans.
going to give you the last word. You got about 30 seconds.
It's the Republicans that is depressing the economy. See, that's the thing. So, and I think whatever Republican candidate you put up, you're going to have Democrats saying it's your fault. It's Trump. So,
Well,
in a way, everybody, both the Republican candidate and the Democrats, are going to be fighting.
well,
Trump.
Very upright sound like that.
Stacey, I'm sorry, you're going to have to hold that thought till next time.